Morning, having my morning coffee, watching Mark's video that he just posted. And today I'm going to work on a clock for a friend of mine from work that she brought me in this bag. We want to check it out. Alright, so let's see what is in this bag. There are a lot of parts. She did tell me it had a mistake that a lot of us have had. It fell off the wall. Pendulum. Part of the leaf from the front. I think that looks like the other side. No, probably the topper. Yeah. I'm not really sure where that piece goes. It's very thin. There's a door. Weights are here. It's a musical cuckoo clock. And she said if I liked the bag, she would make one because she makes these bags. This is a chicken feed bag, the same kind of feed I feed my chickens. And they're like reinforced plastic. They've got thread all through them. They make a pretty sturdy bag, so pretty cool bag. Alright, so I definitely have a lot of work to do on the front. There's all the chains. So let's take a look and see what it looks like inside. I really don't know where this little piece might go. I don't know how well you can see up in there. I'll get it by the light. Top mounted music box. She's had some work done on it before because the bellows have been replaced. And it is an older Regula. It's got the 17.9, 17.4 long GM number on them. But anyway, I don't have the chains on it. Oh, there's the songs. Let's see what it says. Sunshine After Rain. Oh, that sounds cool. So it doesn't look super clean. It looks like it needs to be cleaned and oiled and serviced anyway. So this is going to be my project, getting her clock put back together and servicing it. So join me. We'll have an adventure. I'm going to start with the case, since the case is in such bad shape. This piece is barely holding on. So I'm going to take it off. Usually they put a nail this way and then one from the top if you need to remove your face for some reason. And in looking at the pieces that are here, this has been broken multiple times. There's a repair here, there's a repair here. The bird wasn't quite glued on in the right place, and it's not a real good repair. It's about to come back apart. So I think I'm going to have to get the old glue off to make, it looks like maybe that was hot glue. Just know that hot glue does not work on clocks very well. It will let go at some point. It's not a good thing. It's wood. Use a wood glue. It's not hard. You gotta wait a little bit longer for it to dry. It's not a big deal. It is not going to be pristine when it's back together because there's pieces missing. But I will do my best to, and see there's glue right there. Like that piece has been missing for a long time. This piece has already been glued back together before. So we need to really look at the hole. Here's the reason this thing's falling off the wall. This thing is splitting apart and losing wood chunks. So she's going to need to put some kind of bracket on there to hang this with. There's our music box mounts. It's got screws in the top. I don't know if y'all can see that or not. It just looks dark when I look in the viewer. But anyway, there's 2 screws on each side to hold the music box up in there. So I'm going to just put some wood glue on and clamp these pieces and get the framework started going back together. And then I will get the insides out and clean the case all up. She really needs a mount on there. It looks like there's enough room in this hole. Sometimes the way that, oh wow, that's really jammed up. The way that your arm comes off of here to hang your pendulum leader wire, your U wire, V wires on there, pendulum leader wire. Sometimes it's a lot tighter fit. That it's not really in the middle of this hole that they made in the bottom of the case. So if your clock leans forward or backwards some, it's rubbing. But this one's pretty well centered. If I can mount a bracket back here for her to hang it on, even if it does hang forward just a little bit, it's going to be still in the center. And then with a bracket there on the back door, you can put some little raised cushiony devices that will, even if there's a bracket here that kind of pushes it out from the wall and you put little cushion devices there, it's going to level your clock back out. So, alright, let's get started putting this case back together. So this is the best way I have found to repair these carvings. You can try to clamp things, but guess what? They never fit. See, the clamp won't fit in the little groove right there. So I put the wood glue on there and then I rubber band it to hold it in place. It just needs a little bit of pressure for about 20 minutes and then you can take it off. It's not cured yet. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on it, but it's glued to a hairline little crack there. I take all the extra glue off so you can't see that. So the carving looks good, and then when I put the Howard feed and wax on there, if I need to fill in with anything, I've got the furniture markers that I can match the color of and fill any little line. And probably before I do the feed and wax, I'll color that little line a little bit so you can't see the fresh wood. I've got a little tiny piece here to glue on the tip of that. And then we'll put this piece on. All these little slivers are important to make your lines not show. You need to figure out where they go. So pull out your best jigsaw puzzle skills and put the slivers back in there. So I've worked on these pieces all morning. Did the best I could getting them back together. I haven't cleaned them with the feed and wax yet, but I have glued them back together. I did use my furniture marker to color in the cracks a little bit and try to get it looking a little bit better. This one I had to glue back here. There was already another repair right next to it, but this was my repair. And then I glued this side on here. I've still got a rubber band holding a little bit of pressure. I filled in a missing spot with some wood putty and cut some grooves in it so it would match, and I can color over that when I'm done to make it a little bit less noticeable. I don't have this end piece right here, so there's not much I can do about that, but anyway, it's getting there. It's gonna look decent. Tap your nails out before you start, because if you do it after, you're just causing extra vibration on your joints that you glued. So before you start gluing anything, put your nails, tap them out so that you can just set them on the face and tap them back in without causing a whole lot of vibration stress to your joints that you've made. It came together pretty nicely. The other thing you have to check when it falls off the wall is this right here. This is not going to work real well. It's very loose, it's bent, the nails are coming out, so I'm going to tap the nails back down. I'm going to take some pliers and bend this a little bit tighter so that my stick is good and snug, because this will stop your Cuckoo from running if it's that loose. Alright, I've done all I want to do on the outside of the case. I did get this nice and tightened up, not wobbly anymore. I tapped it in originally with the nails that were in it. They were not going to stay tight. Whenever I put the stick back, they would immediately come loose again. You either need to move them to a new spot or put a bigger nail in. The lift wires for the bellows are a bit bent in there. Everything's pretty tight. We'll see what we can do here. What is that? Grease? They put grease on the levers. Okay. Got great sound. It would be a little bit louder with these holes covered up, but this one needs some work. It's just not got much sound. If you lean it forward, it does. Doesn't have enough weight in the top. That's why I don't like replacing the bellows tops. They're weighted and designed for what they need to be for your bellow. And if you replace the top, okay, you get a new one, you get a 1-day one or an 8-day one. They have different weights in the top. But it's not that hard to change this paper. And then your thing still works right. For all I know, this one's glued on half over the hole, you know, like, okay, anyway, I'll mess with that later. Alright. There is a little tag in there where somebody worked on it. CH8 maybe? I don't know what this is. O4A, O//A, I don't know. Take my finger out of the way, maybe you can see it too, huh? I didn't know. Somebody's initials where they worked on it. Alright, the bird was already unhooked. And the thing he's supposed to go in the door is hanging on the end of his hook. I unhooked the little man. So, let's get this movement out. Oh, Phillips heads. Someone's been changing things out. I've never seen Phillips heads to hold the movement to the case. And one of them is pretty much impossible to get to. So I've got the screws out. I just wanted to look at some things before I took it all apart. This is an interesting little lever here. Comes off. These are hooked together. That's interesting. This black arm comes over. This has a little hook on it, and this little black arm rests in that hook and goes up and trips the music box. So there's your music box lever. And that little thing is already popped out. This piece of metal on this side of this wheel is pretty much smashed all the way down to the drum. So when I did get it to make some noise one time, it was making horrendous noise, probably because that was clicking and clacking along the little pins there. And other than that little X configuration being different, the little man comes down. I don't know what this little part does right here. When this comes around, this goes into the slot on the music box. There's a wire that runs all the way from the little music box side over here across the front of the whole thing, through this little piece right here, down. It makes a little L shape, comes around here. So this little tab hooks on that, and when the man comes back in the door, it pushes that down. Okay. Alright, well, this one will be interesting. Pretty interesting. See what this whole little setup up here is all about. I don't know. It's like a double setup. Maybe it's just extra insurance that the little man comes back in the door. But there's little springs down here and levers. Anyway, let's take it out and take a peek at things. Because I don't think this is a real common regular movement. If it will even come out. There we go. Yeah, it definitely needs a good cleaning. Need to tighten up that ratchet a little bit. That's pretty bent out right there. So it's not rocking like this is coming down out of the U. Here's your U wire, here's your V wire, here's your pendulum leader wire, and the foot that's on this virgin crutch assembly is so bent out that way that it's going to sit right there in the corner of it and make it not want to run. So the top of this verge and crutch assembly should be parallel to the post right here. You can see that when it fell and it got jammed up, this got bent up in the air, which pulled the foot out that way. So this whole thing needs to go down and in. This top of this verge right here, crutch wire, needs to be parallel with the bird post. And all of your arbors inside your movement, this should be parallel to all of that. It should not be bent up in the air. So I'm going to straighten that down, which is going to end up putting the pendulum leader wire back in the center of that foot once that's straight. I mean, it still tries to run even though it's all jammed up. And I don't know what this stuff is over here. There's some kind of white goopy stuff on these levers. There's part of the door and the little pin that goes in it to hold your bird post. Okay, and that little wire's all bent up too. Everything's pretty cruddy, but at least none of the other stuff looks like it got bent. I don't know why this arm is on here, because it's not doing anything. There's a spring that's wrapped around that arm. Maybe it just got jammed down. Holds him out. There's a little groove in it right there. I'm thinking that spring needs to be in that little groove. See, there's just a random arm here. One thing to know about the Germans, they didn't extraneously put parts on here. If there was a way to make one part do 2 things or 3 things, they were going to do it. Efficiency was the name of the game. You studied it, you thought about it, you logically figured out the best way to do it without extra pieces. And so there's an arm here. Why is there an arm there? I mean, you know, this arm trips a piece of wire that's inside there. This arm, there's nothing anywhere around it. Why is there an arm here? And if you look, there's a notch in that arm. So these are the things you need to figure out before you take it apart. How it works, why it's there, so that you don't have as much trouble when you put it back together. Now he definitely wants to stay inside. He's going to pop back in much better. I took that little spring wire and pulled it out to the groove that was on there. Now he pops back in nicely. That's what that arm is for, to make him come back in the door. Okay. I don't know what this, they sprayed like liquid lithium grease, like there's some white greasy junk here and there. Everything's working good there. Check the fan. That looks decent. Okay, so then when the music box is activated, that's what that wire that goes around the top, it's going to pull him out. That's what that wire is for, because there's nothing to pull him out the door. Okay, cool beans. Pretty much done with the case. I worked on it all yesterday. Can't see, I got Howard's feeding wax on my glasses. Okay. Nice. It smears nicely on your glasses, in case you ever wondered. It's hard to see. It came out pretty decent. There were so many repairs that it's not going to be perfect, but 6-foot rule, I think it's going to be pretty decent. I did one little patch here with wood putty I filled in, and I don't have this end piece over here, but I flattened that out so it wouldn't have a big old chunk missing out of it. Put another screw on the back of this. So I'm still not real happy with it, how it mounts. I may do something different, but overall that's how it's looking. Not bad. Little door repair, got doors back on. Knock the topper off. So that's why I'm not really satisfied. The screws that are on the back of it, someone has replaced all this hardware. The side door was screwed on, and I used that screw back here because I didn't have a screw for the other one of these, and it's too tall. I don't want it that loose. And this was glued on at some point and had a nail in it, so somebody else that worked on it changed it out and put a screw in there. They changed out a lot of the hardware because this was mounted with Phillips head screws, which it never is. It's always wood screws. But anyway, it's decent. It is gonna pass the 6-foot rule on the wall at least, so I'm happy with that. Had a lot of damage, a lot more than it was apparent at first. I know a lot of pieces were broken off, but the previous repairs, there were so many previous repairs from it falling. And I am going to take a picture hanging bracket and put across this hole so that it's hanging on the bracket and in some solid wood, because it's fallen enough times to rip off that and then rip off that. And that's not a solid surface for it to hang from anymore. So I'll put a picture bracket. I'll show you when I put it on there. You know what I'm talking about. Probably a little bar that's got little zigzags on the bottom. And I'll put some little felt pads on this corners so that it stays level when it's hanging on the wall. But that gets us to the movement. I done a little quick dunk and swish just to get some oil off so I can get it apart. Someone has had it in an ultrasound for a long time, it looks like, because the brass is discolored. I thought it was like WD-40 on there, but it's really part of the brass now, apparently. So I'll zoom in a minute and we'll take this apart. I've got the ultrasound warming up. I'm just looking at this little mechanism here. There's a screw on the side so you can adjust where this arm, how high it lifts, because this is what trips your music box. So this goes up in here like so. When it trips it, it pushes. That out. Lets the music box play. And this is what stops your fan until the Cuckoo's done. So I guess this is going to go on top of this and pull it out while it's playing. It's going to go on this little wire right there. I've got to figure out how this little wire, I took some pictures of it and I've got the video of it, but it's got to pull it down, and then it's got to let it drop back. So it goes on top of it like so. So anyway, I'm just playing around. Let's see if I can get this little spring out of here. I had to loosen that up so I could get the lever past it to get it off. And that's some of that I was talking about. It had some kind of white stuff on it. I don't know if somebody sprayed some lithium grease on it or what. I don't think whoever cleaned it before took it apart, or this would be coming off much easier. No, they did not, because this has not been opened before. A little bit of rust on that. This screw is just about to fall out. I know it's not the screw holding it. There it comes, maybe. don't want to just pry on it and bend it. So I'm being gentle. But it does not, it drops back down real easy, but it doesn't want to come off very easy. Definitely the trickiest one I have come across. See, it slides back down super easy. But that last little bit, it does not want to come off. Just trying to work the oil down in there a little bit. Finally. It's just where someone screwed the screw in there super tight and it made a divot in the post and was making it hang up a little bit. You don't ever need to put this stuff this tight. Someone really tightened everything super tight. You want to snug it down, but you don't want to crank on it so tight that someone's going to strip the screw getting it off again. So I take the levers off the back first just so that I can finally get it to lay flat. You can take stuff off the front first. There's no special rhyme or reason. Couple of E-clips on the front with some rusty stuff underneath. My hand nut. Normally you can just rotate. I'm trying to get this to turn so I can get to the E-clip easier. It's tight, it really didn't want to turn. You can tell it's an older model regular because all of this is metal. There's not any plastic wheels on it. You can see the junk up under there. Alright, so it does still have the little claw things. You can tap and see how much looser my little lobster claw is now, how much higher and how much more play there is. You could do that and tap it all the way out, as long as it's not hanging up on anything on the front. So I'm going to do that with both of these posts. Alright, they finally both tapped out. I unscrewed the post back here, the little U and V wire post unscrews out of this one. And this little guy is the last thing to come off. And this is how I know it was left too long in somebody's cleaner solution and they didn't take it apart, is because underneath all those screws the brass is still intact. Underneath these, underneath those. They really screwed this that holds that little dial on there good enough that it doesn't even want to come through this hole. So I am going to file that a little bit smoother because that's just crazy. It shouldn't be that tight. Clicker looks good. Both little tabs are bent down, holding lid. This is metal also. Sometimes those are plastic in the newer ones and they'll crack. The last one I worked on was cracked. I had to fix. Pivots look decent. A little grunge on that, but no bad wear. It should clean up pretty nicely. One more little E-clip. Be sure to clean out all my little holes real good so these fall like they're supposed to. This is kind of weak. Maybe not. Wasn't doing much at first, but it seems to be working okay now. Alright. Off we go to the cleaner. Alright, I've got all the parts back cleaned and everything came out pretty good. The discolored black stuff that was all over this was coming off with 10 minutes of the ultrasound at 40 degrees. And so I put it in for 5 more minutes. So most of the blue and black discoloration came off. And then I took the top plate and I used some of that mother's mag and aluminum polish on it, so it would look nice when it got all back together. All of this would come off. I did the back side and it didn't come out as good as the front side, but the front side came out nice, and I was able to read some stuff on it and found a maker down here, and it looked like Jachmail and Klemmer, and so I googled that, and it came out Bachmaier and Klemmer, which was a company that made Cuckoo clocks up until about mid-1950s, I think, and they're still in business making little precision parts. So check out their website. It's got some pretty interesting stuff that they make. All those little tiny pieces that are this big, components all put together that you go, oh, I hope that doesn't break because I don't want to have to work on it. That's what they make now. But anyway, all of the markings came out pretty good. What you can see on them still. A lot of it is hard to read. It wasn't stamped real well, I don't think, because the top part of the maker name, Bachmaier, didn't come out real good, and the no jewels didn't come out real good, but the line under it, unadjusted, and Klemmer came out pretty good. So anyway, I think it looks a whole lot better than it did when I got it. So let's put the pieces back in. And I will probably just not talk, and that way I can speed it all up when I get ready to post it, because y'all know how to put a regular 25 together. It's been put together a million times. The only thing different is the little lever on the back. And when I looked at some of the NAWCC forums about the Bachmaier and Klemmer, that's what they use to activate their music boxes. So maybe it'll help somebody else that's working on theirs. I did go in through all my pivot holes already and clean them out. I want to do a little bit more work on these leaf pinions, so let me pause for a minute. Alright, I put the music box back up in there without too much trouble. 4 screws on the top. There's a little bar right there that it slides on, and I hold it up, put the 4 screws in. And so I'm ready to put this back in. Got my magnet. Wrong end. Alright, so the next part, I'm going to get these nails out of my way. The next part is going to be getting these little guys maneuvered around these little wires up in there. This wire needs to be on the top of this to push this guy out. So I've got to get under that one. And these guys need to be adjusted still, I'm sure. Okay. And then around the chain for the music box. Let's see if I can get that to go up high enough to get under it. Alright, and then get the chains up out of the way. I'm putting in here instead of just putting the movement on my test stand so that I can start working on the adjustments for the different levers. Get the bird tail out of the way. I'm hitting something. There we go. I was hitting the music box. I couldn't move one of the wires up. I got one chain underneath where it needs to be on the bottom of my bracket. There we go. Alright. Seems to be in a decent spot. Except that's no longer on top of that. Okay. Okay, that is over that. Gonna push the guy out. I think I'm ready to screw it down. This is definitely in the wrong spot. It's not tight enough. It's going to need to be hitting my fan. which is over there. But I don't know which way it pulls it. I'm going to try it on the left side of the fan to start with. And let me get the screws back in the case, and then I'll set it up. I'll meet you back on the test stand. We'll put some weights with some temporary hooks and see what happens. Well, I can tell you what happened when I put it all back in the box and set it up on the test stand, because it wasn't very exciting. The Cuckoo would go and not the music box. And I had to end up taking it all back apart because the music box was locking up and wouldn't work. This little arm, this little extra piece of very thin black like tin, that's adjustable. There's two holes that hold it on to the actual governor piece, and it was adjusted too far out. I didn't do anything with that. It was when it shuts off, there's actually little teeth under the end of that right there, and it was too far to the right, and actually catching on the little teeth, it wouldn't let the governor pop out of the hole. There's some play up and down on it, but not when that was caught on the tooth. So I ended up having to take this apart, adjust this over. I had to make some adjustments on this. The fan jumps up in the air when it starts to play, and it was the first few notes it would click and pop and all kind of stuff jumping up and down. And this was kind of bent forward, so I bent it up some and gave it more room for that to play. So right now, hear that click click? That's what it was doing. But it was doing it a lot more, so it's down to 2 little clicks, so that's good. We're improving there. And it's shutting off. And when it pops in the hole, this little arm on the governor is coming forward just enough to stop the fan. Otherwise the fan would keep turning and your song would keep playing. Or all the pressure's right there on the little hole, which is not good. So I think I have got this where because it hangs upside down, so I'm showing you this stuff before I put it back in there because it's really hard to see once it's back in the box. It's got to move out that much to play. And this is riding along inside all of the teeth while it's playing. And then you'll notice at the end when this little black thing pops over, it's actually on top of the teeth. That little tooth right there has taken a little bit of abuse over the years. But it's hanging in there. So, with weight, my fingers being weight, putting pressure on this, this has to move to right there before it'll work. So, I'm going to mark that. Where's my pencil? But it needs to be right there. Because the hardest part of these is figuring out where this needs to be. Especially when it's on the roof and you're bent over trying to look at it. And so when it's off, I'm going to mark where that spot is too. So I need for this piece to move that far, 1/4 of an inch, or this is not going to activate. Yeah, right there. Okay, so everything on this is working as best as I can get it working. I thought for a while I might have to actually put a music box in. I need to turn this wheel. This is not where it needs to be. Now that I'm looking at that, this should be just dropping off of there. It's already starting to raise up again by that point. So I need to unscrew that and turn that wheel a little bit. I'm going to do that. So like anything else, when you make an adjustment, double check what you did. Alright, I believe I'm ready to put this back in. So, I wanted to explain some stuff while I had it apart because it's about impossible to see while it's inside there. So this little arm is what is going to pull the little man out, and it goes up and over this wire that comes out there. So when your music plays, it pulls him out. When it drops back in that little notch, the spring on this pulls it back inside. You see how tight it is? There's not much room in there. He's barely clearing the music box. And then as far as these two pieces, I looked online and I couldn't even find any other Bachmaier and Klemmer people working on these with this little V system of arms. It is not an easy system to work on, that's for sure. Because you've got to get this arm in the right place so that it lifts up enough to move that the right angle. So you've got this arm you're adjusting, this arm you're adjusting, and then the end piece you're adjusting to strike and push that as far as it needs to. So I think I've got it back kind of where it needs to be. If you put it up too high, this can't raise up to, it makes it lock up. It can't lift up high enough to do anything. It just puts it in a bind. So you've got to have it down at a little bit of an angle. This little cutout right here, pretty much I've found if you slice it right across the corner right there, that seems to be the right angle to move it up enough to move this, that 1/4 of an inch that it needs to move. So this guy, you don't want it straight up. This is the guy that activates the Cuckoo. So I'm going to turn this so you can watch what it does. Let me get it reset. Okay, so this one should be the 1/2 hour. And I'll try to pull on the chain while I do this so you can see this little wire right here is going to come over, and that's what makes the Cuckoo bird make it go out the door and go off. But it's also got to drop back enough. If it stays too far over, if it can't drop back enough, if you've got it too straight up in the air and it's resting against the inside of the music box there, because it sits inside there. So if it's sitting against that piece and can't go back far enough, it won't stop cuckooing. It'll keep on cuckooing. So make sure it's angled a little bit over that way so that it can drop back and stop the cuckoo sequence. So this should be the 1/2 hour, I think. So it went off one time, and this should be the hour. So this bar barely moved. The music's not going to play on the 1/2 hour. It's not moving far enough to pull the governor out of the drum. But this time it should move over further. You should be able to see it moving a significant amount to pull the governor out of the drum. It bounces some because this little spring in here is very tight. This model of Regula does not have any kind of pressure spring under the intermediate wheel to make your hands turn. The spring is down inside there. I've been very liberal with the oil because with carriage clocks, they have that same thing. The spring is on the main hour arbor there. And when you get it good and clean, it's like impossible to turn the hands. So I've put a bunch of oil on it, and I'm sorry you probably can't see it very good, but if you have this model, you're going to see a spring down in there. So I've oiled it a bunch so that it's not as bouncy, but it's still a little bit bouncy. You'll see it kind of bouncing around before it starts to raise up. Okay, now I've got my chain off of the wheel. Okay. Alright, so that was 12. So this should be the half hour, and the top piece doesn't move very much to activate the governor. Apparently I bumped it and set it off again. Alright, now we're ready for the half hour. Just the little skinny wire should come over enough to make the cuckoo go off. Okay, and now we're going to go to 1 o'clock, and you'll see this heavier arm move more over. And then, so the governor is pulled out of the drum with this, and then when it drops back, what keeps it from playing is this is over here while it's cuckooing, keeping your fan from turning. Then when the cuckoo shuts off, this drops back and your fan's allowed to turn. So there's multiple adjustments for this to go far, push the governor far enough over, and for this to hold the fan and then fall back out of the way of the fan up in a little tiny hole. So I've had a great time working on this piece. If it was side mounted, it would be so much nicer because this is quite the piece of work here. It's a great design, except that you can't work on anything. So when it's all done, it's going to look something like that there. The heavy bar to the right of the governor, and pretty much touching it but not putting pressure on it. And the wire piece goes inside about right there, somewhere in this area, for the little skinny wire piece to block the fan. So I'm going to put the music box in there and try to make the adjustments that I need from my lines up here and make sure that this is, it's hard to do it when it's together already. You cannot adjust this one at all while it's in the box. Where the screw is on the side, there's no access hole. So you've got to take everything out to move this arm to a new spot. So I've got the arm where I feel like it's in a good spot. At least this one you can adjust from the back and unscrew it. But what I have found is that you usually need for it to go further that way, and you can't really get it to go further that way with your governor arm in the way. So that's why I've tried to get it as close to where I need it to be as I can before I get it in the box. And hopefully I've made some good estimates. So I'm going to put this back in and let's see what we can do. The thing I forgot to mention there's a kind of a question of where does the chain go in relation to this thing. Both sides of the chain go in front of this wire. Or when you've got it up in there, if you've got the chain coming off the back side of the wire, it does hang up and prevent your, you can't even see that, can you? Chain in, out. You don't want the chain coming over this because it will prevent it from working like it's supposed to. So hold that out of the way while you put your chain on. And then the chain can drop down and do what it needs to, and it's not interfering. That little arm is not interfering with the chain. So I just wanted to show you that, because I've had it both ways, trying to figure out which way it needs to go. Once you've got it in there and screwed in, you can't really move where this chain is. I tried, so just showing you, maybe save you a step. Okay, with the music box back in, you can see the chain on both sides, and the little wire back there at the back of it is under it, outside of it. The chain comes in front of that. Of course, you can't see with my arm in the way. Let's see if I can find something long enough to point with. The wire that goes across the front and comes in, hooks into this little notch to let the man come back in the door, is back behind the chain. The chain is here, wire is back there. I think if they had made this box about 2 millimeters smaller, you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. Let me get the this piece attached, and I'll meet you back with a better view. Alright, it's on my test stand, and I got some weights on there with little temporary hooks. This is my Cuckoo test stand, and I put this extra piece of wood on here so I could put a clamp and clamp it to my desk. My desk has this little pull-out writing surface, and it works good for clamping things to it. So let's see what we can see. I think that's about as good as I can get it, where you can see what's going on up in there. Alright, so I'm going to put the little hand nut on and turn the hand. And we're going to see what happens. I have not hooked up the bird or the little man to the doors yet, in case I have to take it back out again. It's just that much more wear and tear on those little wires. So that was half hour. Here comes hour. Black thing is coming over to the left, pulling the governor out, hopefully. Yes. This thing is going way too far over. It's way up in the fan. And nothing. Nothing for my music box. This was kind of where I was before. It pulls out and it does nothing. And this time it's because, like I said, this is too far to the right. It's holding my fan. So I pushed it back just slightly, and it's letting the fan clear this little paper clip looking silver piece. And it didn't pop over and shut off, and it should have, because this is not touching it at all. Alright, I got it to go in the hole and shut off. So that's the joy of these. I'm standing here like on my head looking up in there so I can see what it's doing with the fan. It looks like I've got the fan clearing it. Let's do the half hour again. And let's do the hour. Should be 2 o'clock, I think. 3 o'clock. And nothing. So my little governor is definitely not cooperating. Look, it's shut off. It's very touchy. I mean, the little black piece that I showed you, the little tin that rides along the drum, it's got to be in just the right spot to let the governor come out of the hole and pop back in the hole. So in me putting it in there, it wasn't in the right spot and it kept running, but once I got it running, I had it in the right spot when I had it out of the case. So whatever it did with me putting it in the case, once I ran it a couple times, it looks like maybe it's going to cooperate. And I'll be so happy to get Lisa her clock back. Alright, let's do the half hour again. Nice. And 4 o'clock. Come on, Governor. So I may need to adjust this over a little bit more. But it did shut off nicely. Alright, I'm going to stick my head in the way probably and look and see where the black lines are on my music box. Yeah, this piece I've got coming up is at least 1/8 of an inch too far that way for the little line that I put. It needs to be right there when it shuts off and right there when it activates. So I've got to adjust this little piece. So to do that, I could bend the end. The piece that's in the end of it is made to adjust. I can unscrew it and raise it up some, but it's going to drop back to the same spot. So the only thing I can do is adjust the end of this. So I'm going to try that. Hang on. Yep. Bumped my thing. The hardest part is setting it up where you can see it because it's dark up in there. This is my little book light. Alright, here we go. Around half hour. Now on the hour, the arm's going to move far enough. The governor is going to actually pop out of the hole. and not go off, because it popped right back in the hole. So that little black piece of tin that runs alongside the drum that I had to adjust is not putting enough pressure on the drum to make the little arm that comes out of the drum move to a new position. So it's basically just resting on the drum right here. And I'm going to put a little bend on the end of it so that when the governor end arm pops out of the hole in the drum, it moves it where it can't pop back in the hole. And I'm going to do that off camera because you're not going to be able to see anything with my hands all up in there. Alright, a lot of tweaking on the little black lever there that pushes on the drum and adjusting things, and I may finally have it. It should be, I think, the half hour. One time, no music. And the hour. Yay. Alright, I'm going to hook the little people back up on the front door and let it run on the test stand for a while. It's kind of hard for me to video when I've got this mounted on my desk on this side because I'm standing right up against a piece of furniture, but there it is with the topper on. It's been running. Let me pull the chains a little bit. I haven't put their actual chain ends back on yet because that's the last thing, but I did put the bellows back in, hook up the wires. Half hour, the bird's doing one time. Alright, and in case you want to see the back, hang on, let me move the light to this side. Well, maybe it'll be light enough. No, it won't be light enough up in the top. Hang on. Alright, let's see if I can get the hands turned the right direction. I usually do it the wrong way when I'm on this side for some reason. Let me think for a second. Alright, half hour coming up. An hour. Oops, had my finger on the zoom. Hang on. These cameramen, man, they make good bucks for a reason, I guess. They don't do crazy stuff like this. Alright, so here's the hour. Alright, so that's going to wrap up this video. This one has been quite a project. I hope it helps somebody else that might have this Bachmaier and Klemmer model. And thanks for watching, guys. Leave me some comments. I forgot one little thing. I didn't show you how I was going to fix this back. I looked and I don't have the kind of hanger that I was thinking of using. So this extra piece of wood came with the clock that didn't go anywhere. Had this square attached to it and I chipped it off. And I made a little piece to go in here. I'm going to fill in and glue in the top in that hole. And then I'm going to fill this in with the rest of the wood. It's kind of like a tongue blade. It's a little bit thinner maybe than a tongue depressor. But there's enough there. I can patch that and then patch this. And I think it will be sturdy. We shall see. I'll show you the end result. So far, it's hard to see with this glare. I'm trying to put some light on it and it's too bright. That's a little better. I put a piece in here to fill in that hole. Now I've put this piece across and cut the little hole out before I put it on there and glued it on. And I gotta cut one more little piece to fill in that top little triangle right there. And I think it'll be strong enough to hang it on the wall from that. Well, there's the end result. I think that will hold up pretty nicely. I'm going to make sure that she hangs it in a solid piece of wood. Overall, pretty happy with it. When I recorded before, the door wasn't opening very much. And what I did was, this is still the same opener right here, the little guy on the bottom. I just straightened it out and put a smaller hook on the end, and it added a tiny bit to it so that it would open up bigger. So that's plenty big enough. And what I realized last time I played that song was that is the same song as my very first music box upstairs, a Hubert Herr one with the colorful birds on the front. And I said, hey, if anybody can recognize this song. So the song is, what does that say? I can't even read it. Sunshine After the Rain, I believe. Yeah. Sunshine After the Rain. So now I know what my music box is. So that's pretty cool. So if y'all have a tune with that, then now y'all know what the melody is. I hope y'all have enjoyed this video. I make some long videos. They're really short in comparison because I've worked on this clock for all day for at least 5 different days. It took a long time to totally rebuild the case, rebuild the inside, fix parts that were missing, This door I redid because I didn't like how it was hanging. So it's a little bit better than it was, and I'm not worried about it pulling out now, and it's sitting better. It wasn't quite straight, so a lot of small details that I worked on, like I would if it was my clock. I would want it right. So I hope that she's happy with it, and I'm glad I got to work on it. Thanks for watching, guys.